Greetings, R. Frederick Riddle with another Christian news and views, and this is episode 70. Today's news is Friday recap, and so let's get into that right away here. And we started out the week on Monday with talking about Vice President J.D. Vance. He was in an interview, and he outlined how President Donald Trump is executing his economic plan. He was talking to the host, Margaret Brennan, and she repeatedly questioned when voters would feel inflation ease. My opinion, reporters can be dumb sometimes. She was implying that they should be feeling them already, and she was perhaps expressing an idea of impatience. You don't, 4 years it took to get in the mess we're in. That's not going to take place right away. There's the decisions can be made right away, but when you make decisions, it takes time. And it's who in their right mind would expect that a president, any president, could make a difference in everyday life within the first 4 days of being in office? The expressions, the executive orders, is the first step. It takes time to work its way down. So yes, the president signed executive orders that will help us, all of us, out. But the implementation and the impact on our daily lives will take time. Vice President Vance did a great job of explaining Economics 101 to her, so I don't have much to add. It took time for Bidenomics to hurt us. It will take time to undo that mess. I do expect that we will start feeling some effects this very year. I remember when President Trump took office the first time. We started getting, seeing, if not actually feeling it yet, we began seeing changes being made. Some changes are instant. For instance, he had actually, I believe he's signed some executive orders that moves the government out of the way of the church, which I've talked about in the past. Well, that's almost an instant thing, although it will probably have to go. Some lawyer will have to at least threaten companies and school districts and other things like that to force them to comply. But already many of these people are scrambling to make sure that they are in accordance to the law. Some are challenged in the law, so some are going to go through lawsuits. So these are things that have to be done, and it's part of the nature of executive orders. So, but I believe the confidence level of the average American has risen in that very short span of time. So if you want to know what it has done, it's encouraged people. Now, you won't find that in the newspapers. They're going to find anything they can think of to say that more American people are now upset and American people are now worried. And so it's not really true. People out there they knew when they voted for Trump that these changes were coming. That's why they voted for him. And they knew also that it's going to take time for them to filter down from the executive office down to you and myself, and for us to see and feel the effects, some faster than others. So we're waiting with, I was going to say bated breath. We're anticipating some of the changes, and it may take time for us to actually feel those changes. But the mere fact that we can look forward to them is a positive change in and of itself. On Tuesday, I discussed what's called the cyber threat that's emerging from China, as opposed to TikTok, which is also a part of China. China owns TikTok. And that's a big issue these days. But I think, in my thinking, it's more like instead of being a separate issue, it's the tip of the iceberg. The Chinese have apparently really mastered the idea of cyber warfare. And so they are bringing it to bear already. And so it's an emerging threat that the government recognized and talked about, but I don't find anything in which they actually did anything. They warned. Well, when you have the power of the presidency to enact executive orders, so for instance, why didn't they do something along that line? They might argue, well, we're waiting for the legislature to do it. Well, we've seen in the past you can put on an executive order that takes place right away, almost, depending upon what that order is talking about. In this case, it's things that would affect the cyber warfare. And there are different things, different steps that Biden could have taken that were never taken. And so that leaves a lot of history that in the past 4 years of doing nothing. Cyber attacks are serious business. These attacks are constantly becoming more sophisticated. This will only be curtailed by government and the private sector cooperating in waging war on these hackers. It's something that needs to be looked at and explored and see where they can find some common ground that doesn't take away the rights of the people and is within the bounds of freedom, but also within the bounds of our Constitution. Now, you're going to hear some people that are already doing it, in fact, claiming, oh, he's turning us into a dictatorship. So taking away the ability of an enemy to attack us is not becoming a dictatorship. The government has to be flexible enough to be able to attack or counterattack, in this case, attacks on us. And that is something that I believe that Trump's already dealing with. So we'll just have to see how that goes, but we're like 4 years too late on that, folks. We've had 4 years of seeing this come up and get going, and I believe the FBI director pointed out there are like 50 hackers to every one counterattacker, if you want, or whatever you want to call them, or every 50 black hats to every one white hat. Let's think of it that way. So anyhow, that is an issue again that came up on Tuesday. Another issue that came up on that day was Trafficking Survivors Relief Act. And this is talking primarily about sexual trafficking. Now you have all types of trafficking, but primarily sexual, and it involves both men and women. It also involves children, boys and girls. And in a lot of cases, the boys and girls at a young age are used to work and maybe even perform sexual acts. But as they get older, then the sexual acts increase. It's a very pervasive and attack that we feel all over the United States, right here in Florida as well. They have a variety of ways they kidnap women. I imagine they've kidnapped men as well. Sometimes they entice women to run away from home, young, like teenage girls, to run away from home. They think they're going to get married. They think that they're going to get away from their imagined horrors or difficult life. And then they find themselves in a very terrible situation. And so and another thing with that act is that there are victims of those acts, these men and women and these boys and girls. So if this act is passed, it will extend protections to those women and men who were victims of trafficking. In some cases, they were forced to commit or at least participate in criminal activities. As a result, some of them got arrested, and this actually resulted in more control by the people who ran these trafficking things, because they would bail them out, and then they would hold that over the woman's, usually the woman, her head. And then when if they did escape and get back, they were still not back to a normal life because they have criminal records now. And this act would help relieve that, take those records off, criminal charges and things off their records, and be able to enable them to return to some form of a normal life. This is a step in the right direction. I'm not a progressive, and this came out of a progressive thinking, but sometimes they come up with some good ideas, and it actually ends up taking conservatives to enact them and to make them work. And so I think that this is something that needs to be looked at. It needs to be, I think this, if there's anything wrong with this act, don't do away with the act. Just fix the problem and move forward and get it out there, because what it is basically is a first step so that these survivors can truly survive. So that was this past week. Well, that was on Tuesday. On Wednesday, I talked about the California fires. Now, this is basically an update, and at that point, it was like 29 people had died, and there's more to be expected. And I think I pointed out that initially I thought well of the mayor of LA and of the governor of California, until I found out that they had a track record of failing to take actions that could have been taken that would have at least lessened the possibility of these fires, and maybe even stopped them. But I pointed out that thousands of firefighters have been battling wildfires across 45 square miles of densely populated Los Angeles County. The two largest fires, the Palisades Fire in Pacific Palisades and the Eaton Fire near Pasadena, remain active. Now, one of the things I didn't point out is that I've been to California. I've been to Pasadena, and that was years ago, decades ago. And so it is rather densely populated, and was an attractive place to be. So that's just a personal touch there. One of the latest of the fires, the Hughes Fire in the Castaic area, has prompted evacuation orders for tens of thousands of people. So here's my opinion on that one. California has long been an independent state that looked at itself as a leader. It would tend to dictate to the rest of the nation, if you want to sell your products in our state, you got to come up and raise the standards, your standards, according to our standards, or lessen them. Some of the things that they called raising were actually lessening, in my opinion. But there were some things in which they did that haven't done any harm. They raised the cost of the like cars and stuff like that to do it, but they may have done some good. And sometimes it all depends upon how you view things. I think there's verdict is still out on a lot of that stuff. But here is the point. All of a sudden, now they are dependent on help from outside their borders. Other states are having to come to help them. Why? Because they neglected. Now, not every state that gets a fire or gets a hurricane or gets damaged is guilty of this. But California appears to me to be guilty of negligence. And other states are sending firefighters and others to help them out. It's the thing to do, is what it's right to do. So whether caused intentionally or accidentally, all these fires are or have erupted due to the dry conditions in California. But it also appears that California, like I said, has been negligent in trying to prevent such fire. They could have relieved some of the conditions. They could have taken actions. There's a variety of actions that have already been mentioned. So, in my opinion, many of the leaders, from the governor right down to the lowest officials, ought to be investigated. How much did they know and understand about the conditions? What decisions did they make or not make that impacted these fires? In other words, who had knowledge and didn't use it? Once you have the facts, then they must be held accountable. On Thursday, we looked into the subject of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And there's a lot of deniers out there, not only that he ever existed, which we already dealt with, but they also shoot down the whole idea of the resurrection. And they call it mythology and all that good stuff. The sort of problem with that is there's such a thing as called facts. Now they either deny the facts, belittle the facts, or explain the facts away. None of which satisfies the fact that they still remain facts. Now there are several explanations that they come up for the empty tomb. For one, that the women who went to the tomb that day went to the wrong tomb. Well, that was rather impossible. They knew where the tomb was. They had already been there. They knew where it was, and there were soldiers all around that area. And so the whole idea of them not knowing where the tomb was just doesn't bear out. The soldiers that were there, some may have fled, but some were laying on the ground. I believe that some had passed out because they had a very frightful experience. So there might have been soldiers laying on the ground there. And so there was all sorts of things in which the women, they had waited to go there. They say that they were so fraught and wrought that they couldn't think straight. And these women came prepared. They were going to clean the body, unwrap it, clean it, and then wrap it back up again. That took thought. That took planning. So they were not that distraught. They had already gone through the emotional part. You gotta remember, this is 3 days later. So they had already gone through all that, and now they were coming to the final step, what they thought would be the final step. So that whole argument is ridiculous. They knew where it was located, and they came with a plan in mind. Another explanation was the Roman soldiers stole the body. Now this was equally foolish. Losing the body or sleeping on duty, another excuse they give or explanation that they give, was equally foolish and dangerous. Those soldiers could have lost their lives. And in fact, the lie that was spread with a little side note to it, and that was that the Sanhedrin paid the Roman soldiers to say that somebody had rolled the stone back and stolen them while they slept on duty. Well, because it would have caused death, they paid the soldiers, and they actually interceded for them so that they would not suffer death. But here's the thing. If at any time the Romans looked upon the Christians as something that they wanted to stop in its place, and they did, by the way, all they had to do was produce the body. If they stole it, they knew where it was, and all they had to do was reproduce it. So the resurrection is a historically proven fact, though naysayers deny it. They can deny it all they want. The truth is out there, and it's been well documented. And for that matter, the Bible itself, the very Word of God, speaks to it. Of course, they deny that it's the Word of God, which only makes them fools. So that was this past week. If you like this channel, be sure to subscribe. And all you got to do is right down here, click on there, and you can subscribe to the channel. And you'll get Christian News and Views, which you're watching right now. Plus, you'll get Becoming a Published Author is Fun, which is a podcast that's basically sponsored by Basic Authors Training, a course that I designed and host, so that where I train people who want to be writers. I train them not just to be writers, but become published authors. Comes with a guarantee. They finish the course, I'm going to publish them. And so the whole thing is that when you subscribe to this channel, you get more than just this podcast. Anything else that I put out on this channel, you get to see, to view, download if you want to. So, but there's one more thing. When you subscribe to this channel, you are encouraging me. Now, yes, I realize that that may not be a big thing on your priority list, but it is on mine. Because when you say that you like it and and you take that action, that speaks volumes to me. That tells me that you are out there and you are watching and enjoying, and you want to see more. And it encourages me to give you more. So keep it up, folks, and continue to subscribe. Or if you want to, you can follow me, and then you will. There, I'll take you to the my email, or to your email. Actually, they'll send you right directly some a notice right to your email. And I promise you, if you do that, I'm going to continue to do all in my power to create episodes that will inform, encourage, and inspire you. That's my promise to you. And so I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next episode next week.